As someone who's never seen the original Hellsing anime but has seen Hellsing Ultimate a few times, as well as one of the internet's holy grails that is Hellsing Ultimate Abridged, I'd say I'm pretty familiar with Hellsing as a whole. The more popular adaptation that is Ultimate would release over the span of 6 years, with 3 different studios contributing to different episodes, and according to the internet provided a more accurate depiction of the source material compared to the original 2001 show. Now after hearing that, I became pretty intrigued because I didn't think that Ultimate would be an accurate adaptation at all. And that's not as if I had previously read the manga and had my own opinion or heard that kind of take elsewhere. It was mainly due to the fact that, well, Hellsing is weird. Hellsing Ultimate is one of those shows that I always recommend to newcomers into the medium, as in my opinion it's the anime equivalent to throwing someone who can't swim into a pool. It is jarring, strange, over the top, and most importantly, weird. But when I say weird, I don't mean it in a bad connotation. Quite the contrary, actually. But to think that a story as bizarre as Hellsing's actually existed on paper was a thought that I couldn't exactly process nor believe. So, to answer my curiosity, plus the fact that I bought all the deluxe editions, I decided to read the manga, and now I can confidently say that, yeah, Hellsing is weird. But in a good way and extremely worth your while. Now, if you've never heard of Hellsing or don't know the premise, then please fasten your seatbelts, keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times, and allow me to tell you about the ridiculous roller coaster that is Hellsing. In the southwest region of England lies a remote village known as Cheddar, an ordinary peaceful village with little to no problems. However, as of recently, that hasn't exactly been the case, as over the span of 10 days, 10 villagers have gone missing. The village and local police soon grow suspicious of the new priest and decide to go question him but never return, causing the London Police Department to come and investigate themselves. Despite their efforts, each squad sent into the town is met with the same fate, resulting in an even larger problem and forcing them to bring in a certain type of specialist. Enter Sir Integra Hellsing, a cigar-smoking badass woman who explains that this isn't an ordinary missing persons case at all. No, this is the work of a vampire. You see, Integra is the head of the Hellsing organization, a group built and dedicated to dealing with supernatural threats like zombies, ghouls, and of course, vampires. Now when you think of vampire hunters, you probably imagine someone with a wooden stake, maybe some garlic, bottle of holy water, you know, stuff you'd see in an early 2000s cheap budget horror movie. But when it comes to Hellsing, it's not that type of stereotype, as the organization's best vampire hunter is a man named Alucard wielding 2 giant pistols, and yes, if you couldn't tell by the name, Alucard is a vampire, the most powerful vampire at that, and honestly the most powerful being in the world that Hellsing takes place in. Due to this, he takes care of the priest with minimum effort, and in the process saves and turns a girl named Saracen to his direct underling as a newly born vampire. Now this incident involving the priest would normally be a typical day at work for Hellsing, however as of recently there's been an alarming increase in vampire attacks that they've had to deal with, and upon looking into it find a transmission device inside one of the vampires. Now realizing that these attacks have all been planned and that someone is behind them pulling the strings. With this new set of knowledge, Alucard must uncover the mysterious mastermind and figure out the reasoning behind these set of attacks, and thus lies the tale of Hellsing. Well, not really. See, that's only the introduction, a basic summary of the first few chapters, and doesn't exactly seem all that weird. Engaging for sure, but not enough to garner the term weird. That is until you read the rest of the story, which can be summed up like this. The Protestant organization Hellsing with 2 vampires and a butler versus Nazi Germany with a vampire army and werewolves versus the Vatican and the Iscariot organization with an army of priests in the Ninth Crusade dressed in Catholic Spanish penitent robes, which nowadays are worn by a not so great group of people. I'm gonna say that one more time just to clarify and just to make sure that we're on the same page. We have a Protestant organization with vampires and a butler versus Nazi vampires and werewolves versus the Vatican and people that look like the KKK. It is without a doubt one of the most bizarre concepts I've come across, though I will say that the manga does a really good job in making these weird choices feel kind of normal. Let me explain. Yes, the content of the story definitely takes you by surprise when you first see it, but because of how strange it is, every other aspect that gets introduced later on doesn't exactly feel out of the norm. Almost like it's to be expected in this universe's lore. It makes for a hell of a reading experience and just adds to the overall bizarreness that is Hellsing, so why is it so popular? Well, Hellsing is really entertaining and quite frankly it's a really great manga. While on the surface, Hellsing comes across as a fun, edgy, over-the-top action gorefest with some great artwork and an insane premise, and it is without a doubt all of that, but there's more to it. What starts off as a turn-your-brain-off kind of story evolves into a somewhat thought-provoking narrative with some pretty heavy themes. Granted, it's no Vagabond or Berserk, but it does get into stuff like morality, belonging, and vulnerability, which you would not expect to come out of a manga that has Nazi vampires in it. They say never judge a book by its cover, and this is definitely an example of that, but can also be said about the story's main character, Alucard. Now, Alucard is ridiculous. I can't really think of a better word to describe him, as he is straight up utterly ridiculous, but I fucking love his character. Like I mentioned before, Alucard is the most powerful being in the universe that Hellsing takes place in, and that's no exaggeration. Outside of being a vampire, the most powerful vampire at that, he's pretty much immortal. Only having maybe 2 things you could consider weaknesses, but besides that, it's like used a GTA cheat code for unlimited health. The guy gets dismembered, shot to look like a sponge, sliced into tiny pieces, stabbed by 100 different knives at once, and just shakes it off. Alucard is broken, and to top it off is absolutely terrifying. With his draping dark hair and tall frame accompanied by eyes and a smile reminiscent of the Cheshire Cat, Alucard is basically the physical embodiment of fear, even more so when he releases any of his control art restrictions and turns into a black void of piercing eyes with the Black Hound of Bakersville seeping out of his shadows. It's stuff pulled right out of a nightmare, but that's just his appearance, as Alucard's presence alone is shown to be enough to make people shiver in fear. Besides 2 characters that could be considered to be a threat to him, everyone else knows or is made to be known that you don't want to get on his bad side. His level of intimidation is simply unmatched, which is aided by his violent showman-like personality. While Alucard definitely gets shit done, he does so in a way that makes it fun to him, relishing in the carnage and violence that his line of work provides. For example, after wiping out some soldiers sent after him at a hotel, he notices a television crew outside and gets the fun idea to throw their bodies out the window so that they end up impaled on different flagpoles, creating a picturesque spectacle of the situation as he walks out the front door grinning and doing the beckoning gesture, which the entire purpose of was to serve as a declaration of war. It is theatric, over-the-top, flat-out awesome, and allows for a lot of fun moments, which ultimately makes him feel somewhat unhinged and ties back to that sense of fear that he emits and the innate weirdness of the overall story. Though like I mentioned before, never judge a book by its cover, as his true nature is far different. See, despite all the hatred and malicious intent that Alucard gives off, he's actually a pretty compelling character. While that hatred and extravagant sense of violence is very much real, it's not what's at the center of Alucard, which in reality is a character filled with an extreme sense of loneliness and envy. As a vampire who's lived for hundreds of years, he's lost pretty much everything. Having to live so many different lives as you watch the world and people around you fade into existence must be an incredibly forsaking experience, and one that he's had to endure for so long, causing an extreme feeling of depression and loneliness and his ultimate wish of wanting to die, which is one of the reasons as to why he's so envious of humans. As someone who's lost humanity, the fact that humans are capable of old age and are able to greet death is something he's jealous of and can't relate to. At times, it may seem as if he has a disdain for humans because of this, but actually holds a great deal of respect for those who have the ability to endure the life that humanity provides. Though that's not to say that he hates vampires, as that wouldn't be the case, only that he believes it's something that should be earned rather than his transformation, which he views as a cowardly escape. And despite that personal wish of death, it's actually his ties to both humanity and vampires that serve as his foundations of staying in this world. Integra serving as the tie of humanity and Ceres as vampires. While both of these relationships are technically obligations, and once he can't refuse, it feels more like a sense of want and duty rather than being forced to. The sense of loyalty to serve Integra and to watch over Ceres outweighs that of his personal wish to die, which to me is a commendable trait and adds more dimension to Alucard as a character. Now, the specifics of these attributes are all fictional and of course not relatable, but the foundation of them very much are. Loneliness, depression, and envy are all things that just about everyone can or has related to. To have a character that for the most part is an insane murder vampire suddenly reveal these layers of humility and relatability is a crazy weird decision to make as a writer, yet one that works towards the benefit of the story so well. A story that, like I said before, is just as weird on the surface, yet manages to delve into some heavy, compelling stuff that makes it feel grounded despite the insanity that Hellsing oozes. Hellsing is so bizarre, there's no other way to put it, but it's a great manga. Now, it's not the best thing in the world, and definitely not a story for everyone, but you'd be surprised how much of it you might end up liking. You go in for the crazy violence, yet come out in a state of self-examination, which just adds to the overall weirdness that is Hellsing and the unique reading experience it provides. Again, I don't know how it exists, but I'm happy it does. But yeah, that's it for this one. Thank you for watching, I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good one. Peace.